This week on the Honor Roll podcast, we'll be discussing undergraduate research with honor student Alex Vu and his experience presenting his research on Vietnamese foreign policy at the 2024 Midwest Conference on Asian Affairs at the University of Notre Dame. All that and more coming up next. Hey Honors Bulls, welcome to the Honor Roll podcast, the flagship podcast of the Judy Genshaft Honors College podcast network. I'm your host, Fabiana Requena, a third-year student studying marketing and business analytics at the University of South Florida and a member of the Honors College. Today, my co-host is Reva Gandhi, a third-year student studying biomedical sciences and public health with a minor in nutrition. Welcome to the podcast, Reva.
Hi, Fabi. Pleasure to be here.
And as always, we like to start off the podcast with one big question. So my question today is, what is your biggest presentation tip?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say try to find somebody in the audience who you know or maybe you talked to before presenting that you're somewhat comfortable with, and they're just a really nice way as you're scanning the crowd to make eye contact with and can reassure you that you're on the right track.
Yeah, I really like that tip, actually. I'm going to try using that. Something that I do is when I'm actually practicing beforehand, I try to look in the mirror and see like what I look like when I'm presenting, because I feel like it kind of takes the pressure away when I'm actually up there in front of a bunch of people. I'm like, okay, I look normal.
Yeah, that's actually really good too. And I've heard, practice builds your confidence. So definitely have to try that one out. And speaking of presenting, today we're going to be joined by honor student Alex Vu as he shares his experience presenting at a national conference, how he got there, and his hopes for his impact on his research. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Kate Ashmore. I am the Scholars Advisor at the Judy Genshaft Honors College here at the University of South Florida. The Wilcox Scholars Program is an opportunity for honors students who are interested in public policy, civic engagement, leadership, and community service. This program is open to students from all majors and begins at the end of your first year at USF. As a Wilcox Scholar, you'll have access to unique networking opportunities with professionals in public affairs and gain valuable real-world experience. After completing your first year as a scholar, you'll be eligible for a scholarship to support an internship, fellowship, service opportunity, or similar activity. Applications open every spring. Go Bulls!
Joining us today is Alex Vu, a student researcher and a Judy Genshaft Honors College student who recently represented our university at the Midwest Conference on Asian Affairs at the University of Notre Dame, where he explored important topics on Asian studies and connected with scholars from across the region. Alex, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I just first want to say thank you to everybody here for hosting me today. So my name is Alex Vu. I'm a junior at USF. I'm double majoring in econometrics and political science. I'm also an international student coming all the way from Vietnam. Apart from my interest in research, I'm also a tour guide here at USF as well. I'm also part of the GNSI Future Strategist program and the USF Legislative Internship program.
Thank you so much for being here, Alex. So you mentioned you're double majoring in econometrics and political science. Can you tell us what led you to want to go down this path and how you interconnected the two?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So I didn't start it out as an econometrics and political science student. I actually started out as a computer science student. I thought that's what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to become a software developer. I was dead wrong. Wasn't made for any of that. But yeah, so I've always had this passion for history, philosophy, and political matters, but I've never, thought about pursuing them academically or consider that's a career. But I didn't know how big that passion was until I got here in USF and I took honors courses, which was a big inspiration for me, I'll say. So here at the Honors College, we had great courses, and two of them really showed me how I enjoy academia. One is the class called Communism, Fascism, and Democracy by Dr. David Garrison, and another class is a class on authoritarian Russia by Dr. Aman Mahmoudian. So both are legends here at the Honors College. They were great. I absolutely enjoy every single day going to class. And yeah, it was just fun. I enjoy, the reading, the writing, the discussion, and all of that. And after a while, I realized, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to study econ and political science. On how the two fields connected, I think econ and political science, they are two sides of the same coin. Econ explain human motivation, but for material, for money, let's say that. Political science explain human motivation for power, for interest, for influence. And I think, in order to understand our society and, to solve the problems that is facing our world today, you need to have a good understanding of both of them. So I think that's where they both connected.
Wow, that's really cool. It's cool how you shifted your path from something so different to something really almost niche, but still really broad and applicable to a broader community. But you recently attended the 2024 Midwest Conference on Asian Affairs. It was your first time there, I believe.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how you felt?
Absolutely. It was definitely a little bit scary at first. It's my first time there, and we have all of these amazing panelists and experts there as well. I was just really scared because I'm afraid that I'm gonna say something that make myself a fool in front of all of these experts and everybody. And it was a little bit daunting at first, but I think the more I prepare for it, the less scared I feel, and the more I'm confident in my ability to deliver the presentation and all of that. And I had amazing people to support me along the way. People here at the Honors College, my friends here at USF, but also the staff at Notre Dame. They were really welcoming and accommodating, and it's just great. And yeah, I just feel really happy to be able to be there. It was a many months long project, and be able to finish it on a high note was great. And of course, privilege. I feel really privileged to be able to go to Notre Dame, and I couldn't have done it without the support from the Honors College.
Were you the only student here at USF who went?
Yeah, I was the only one.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you presented while you were there?
Absolutely. So my paper is titled Can Vietnam's Bamboo Diplomacy Withstand Future Regional Conflict? Basically, I analyzed Vietnam's current foreign policy and how they're trying to balance relation between major powers in the world, so Russia, China, the US, and how they maintain peace in the region. And this is not an unpopular strategy. A lot of these countries, they do that, and they try to analyze if this policy is going to be able to sustain in the future. If U.S.-China relations get a little bit more intense, will they pick side? And if they pick side, who will they pick? So that's the big questions.
So prior to going to this conference, had you ever presented at a conference before?
So I've never presented at a conference before this. Actually, I would not recommend this for everybody. I would never recommend you to sign up for a big presentation without no prior experience. It can be scary at first, and I don't think that's a good way. I think I would recommend you to sign up for conferences right here at USF beforehand. So we have a great one here, which is the Humanities Conference that hosts here at USF every spring. I think that's a great opportunity for everybody who's trying to get into academia. I think we have a lot of opportunities here for you to do that. Me personally, I had quite a bit of in-class presentations, so just in all of my classes. I also present a lot at my club, which is the John Quincy Adams Society, where we have presentation every Tuesday. We talk about international relations problem. So that's sort of my presentation for the conference, but I've never presented at a conference before.
So what kind of led you to present at this specific conference as opposed to one of the ones offered more locally?
I think first is definitely the organization that hosted it. So there's a couple of organizations in the field of political science and international relations, like big ones. We have the American Political Science Association, International Studies Association, and this one is hosted by the Association for Asian Studies, which is one of the top. So I want to go this one. And also because Notre Dame is a great school. I know this is an opportunity for me to network with students and faculty members at Notre Dame, which is one of the top schools in the U.S. In the field.
Yeah, for sure. It seems really cool that you were able to get this opportunity and go to Notre Dame. So once you kind of arrived to Notre Dame, can you tell us a little bit about what your days at the conference itself look like?
Absolutely. So first I got, I flew to Chicago because, I couldn't fly all the way to Notre Dame, and then got to wait at Chicago for like a couple of hours, then took the train, was a beautiful train ride, like 5 hours of it to Notre Dame. So it was pretty long time of transportation. But once I got there, it was awesome. I came into the hotel, checked in, and there's a staff right there for the conference staff. They're already waiting for me and helped me check in, and everything was great. I didn't have to do much. They were supporting me all the way. Once I checked in on Thursday night, and then Friday is when the conference started. So next morning, I just jumped straight into the panels and everything. Got the chance to talk with the admission staff at Notre Dame at the Keough School of Global Affairs. So that's great. And got a chance to talk to all of these scholars coming from around the world and from America, actually. So got a chance to talk a lot with PhD students from Chicago, from Harvard as well. And they were fantastic people. They share about their research, and it's really fascinating to hear about what other people's doing. And, hear if they might have some feedback on my presentation, my research as well, or, even room for future collaboration. That's a great thing. That's a great thing too. So I think a conference is definitely an opportunity for you to network and to learn from everybody else, and just to enjoy and make friends as well.
That kind of leads me to my next question, which was how the conference's diverse audience, you said there's students from all over the place, how those students helped understand and kind of like enhance the topics that you discovered or that you discussed at the conference.
Absolutely. I think, when you have a diverse group of scholars, the first thing is you get to hear what they're doing. And the thing with, I don't know if it's correct for other fields in academia, but in political science, sometimes scholars, they tend to focus on a specific topic or like a specific subject that they research in, and they don't know much about the other, or they focus on a certain school of thought and they don't care about the other ones. I think, going to these conferences, you get to hear more about what other people are doing and to hear more new methods as well, and that's great. So I remember one of the panels was on the development of Chinatowns in cities across the US. And to talk about how these Chinatowns, they create huge economic, political, and geographical impacts on the cities. I think that's awesome. I've never thought about that kind of topic before, and it's great to hear what other people are doing. On my panel, I had a couple of great people as well, and one of them was this PhD student, and he was working on President Grant's China policy in the late 19th century. And it's crazy to think how policies that were created, almost 150 years ago can still have an impact on U.S.-China relations today. And I think it's awesome because I'm a person who studied U.S.-China relations, and to be able to see back in history how those two countries work and how it went to where it is today, I think that's a very, very new and insightful perspective into the matter.
Why do you think it's important to study these topics?
I think, I think personally for me, it's important to maintain peace in the world. I don't know how everybody feels that, but, my dad grew up in the Vietnam War, so I grew up with his stories as well. And I think, war is something we try to avoid. And people talk a lot about how these powers, US, China, Russia, they can go to war one day, and obviously we don't want that to happen. And I think academia plays a big role into this, because if you understand the root cause of conflicts and you understand how to maintain peace and prosperity between all countries, you make the world a better place. I truly believe that. And at the most intrinsic level, I think that's what motivated me. I just want to contribute my efforts into, how can we stop wars? That is the essence of all of my research and questions and my work.
That's beautiful. That's so well said.
Thank you.
So your research was obviously very impactful. Did you get any feedback from members of your panel that kind of impacted what you thought or like the future of your research?
Absolutely. So on my panel, one of the panelists and the moderator was a professor at Notre Dame. And he went to Princeton and Harvard beforehand, so he's very smart, and he obviously knew what he was doing, and he's one of the most prominent scholars in the field of U.S.-China relations. His research is a little bit different from everybody. He focuses on subnational relation. Subnational relation is like, instead of U.S.-China relations, it's like relation between the state of Florida and China, the state of California and China, and that sort of things. And relationship between, people to people, and corporations and non-government organizations, what role do they play? And it's very interesting to know because when you think of diplomacy, you think of like the president and State Department and all of these officials. But in reality, they are being motivated and conducted by so many different players that you've never thought of before. And, at undergraduate levels, you don't learn about these kind of things. The theories haven't been able to capture them yet. And he was telling me about how my research can be expanded to include all of these different factors. And I think that really helped me a lot. It showed me, stuff that I have never thought of before. And I'm really grateful for that. And I actually landed an internship thanks to him. So he showed me about subnational relations and state-level diplomacy, which I then go on and read and write a couple papers about it. And then I use it to apply for my internship at a think tank in Washington, D.C. And then I got accepted for this upcoming spring. So it's crazy to think how these opportunity can lead to another things later on.
Well, congratulations for that. I also wanted to ask if there were any particular presentations or discussions you kind of mentioned before that really resonated with you during the conference. Can you pinpoint a specific one or a couple?
Absolutely. So one of those panel was this one on the last day of the conference when so it was a discussion on the Bridge and Road Initiative, or BRI in short. So the BRI is basically a policy by China. They want to promote the image and they want to exert the influence. And they do that by they go and investing in all of these countries in Africa and Asia, in development projects, infrastructures, and that sort of things. And it was a very lively discussion. We had scholars coming all the way from Korea, Japan, and China, of course, for this discussion. And, a lot of people thought that it was the last one, so people might get a little bit tired and worn out of it. But the discussion was lively. It was lively, and everybody was, at one point, I'd say that they were all speaking at each other. And I was definitely a part of that discussion as well. And bear in mind, none of them knew I was an undergraduate. So they all treated me as just a fellow political scientist, and they were not holding back on the frankness and the idea. So we definitely had a very lively debate. And I think what struck me the most is that in academia, they don't really care about how old you are. What matter is the substance of what you're saying, your ideas. And I think that's great. And even motivated me more to be a part of academia. And I definitely learned a lot from that.
So would you say that you were mainly surrounded by a lot of graduate students while you were there?
Absolutely. I was the only undergraduate students there. And the rest were all just graduates and professors.
Wow.
So it was very definitely interesting. And, at the end, one of the professors at Notre Dame, they asked me, she asked me, what kind of work research are you doing at USF? And I was telling her, oh, no, I'm just an undergraduate. And she was like, really? I don't believe that. But yeah, I think it was fun to be able to go there and, surprise them, of course, but to be able to learn from them. That is the most important, to learn about, because, there's a big gap between what you learn in school and what's actually going on in academia. There's a gap right there, and definitely motivated more to learn more and expand my skills and knowledge.
My name is Marco Nardiello. I am the Advancement Administrator for the Judy Genshaft Honors College. Award Spring is USF's scholarship portal. It is university-wide. All sorts of scholarships are on there. Go and apply right now. Do it. Go Bulls.
What would you say to students that are also undergraduates and that are looking to get involved in conferences like this?
Absolutely. I will say my biggest advice is don't be afraid, just go for it. I definitely applied to conferences before and I failed many times before I get it, but I didn't stop. And, you don't just think that you're an undergraduate student and you can compete with all of these graduate researchers and professors. You don't think that. I think you should apply no matter what. And you just keep knocking on doors. Don't stop. At first when I got accepted, I didn't think I was accepted. And then when I got accepted, I got to go and look for funding for the trip. And everybody turned me down. And I thought, no way. I'm not going to cancel this. I'm going to try till the end. And then I just keep knocking on as many doors as I can. And then I talked to my advisor here at the Honors College. And then the Honors College helped me out. It was wonderful. So I would say that you just don't stop and you just keep going and you'll get there one day.
That is incredible advice, and I definitely think all of our listeners should follow it because you never know what's coming next for you. It sounds like you had a great time at the conference, and I'm extremely impressed by everything that you've done there. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the Honors College made this possible for you?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. When I got accepted into the conference, I got to go and ask everybody else on the funding and all of that. And of course, I've never been to a conference before. So I got to go and ask my professors on how should I conduct this research? How am I going to create my slideshow and prepare for the presentation and everything? And, I came on knocking on many, many doors. I came on the student government and my advisor with the College of Art and Sciences. But none of them can help me because of current regulations. And I took a chance. I emailed my academic advisors here at the Honors College, Miss Megan Brownstein, and Miss Megan was really accommodating, and she told me to email Dr. Davidson at the Honors College. And I gave her a pitch, and after a while, they accepted my request for funding. So that was great. And it was amazing. Everybody here at the Honors College has been so accommodating and helping me along the way, from Dr. Davidson, Dean Adams, to Dana here at the communication team, Kathy at the financial team. They're all wonderful people, and Megan, my academic advisor as well. As I prepared for the presentation, I definitely consulted Dr. Arman Mahmoodian a lot. I'm very close with him. I absolutely love that guy, and he's just one of the most amazing professors that we have here at USF as well. And he was helping me a lot with the presentation. He gave me advice and tips on how to prepare for it. And I think those tips definitely helped me to, I'll say, relax and enjoy the conference instead of stressing out about it. And he told me that the first time is always going to be intimidating, but you just go ahead and yeah, that's what I did. So yeah, really thankful for everybody along the way.
I love that the Honors College makes these opportunities possible. Like, even though this is, I would say like a big dream for you come true, we were able to make that possible through the funding, through the like mentorship support like you were talking about. And I think that's a really unique part of being part of the Honors College. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of what getting ready for the conference was? You said you had consulted your professor a lot. What did that look like?
Absolutely. So I think in preparing for the conference, there's two parts. The first part is preparing in terms of logistic parts and all of that. So I work with Kathy's here at the Honors College, and she's amazing. She handles everything for me. And, I don't really have to do much on that part. She handles everything ranging from plane tickets to booking for hotels and everything. And I love that. She's an amazing woman. And Dana is wonderful as well. I remember closing to the conference, I emailed him and I asked if there's anything he wants me to do in terms of like communication in media. And it was like, no, just focus on your presentation. We'll handle all of that. And that's great. That's awesome. I'm really grateful for that. In terms of the professors, we have Armand here is a wonderful person as well. He, I gave him a lot of these drafts that I was writing on the paper and the presentation slides and mock presentation to him as well. And I gotta thank my girlfriend as well. She was more of a visual person than I am, and I had absolutely no idea how to do these slides. They look horrible, and she helped me a lot with that to make them look more beautiful. So a lot of these people here along the way helped me with that, and yeah. From presentation of the content or getting me ready for the flight and everything, everybody here just helped me, from the professor to the staff. It was just wonderful.
So Fabi and I were kind of talking about that earlier. Preparing for the conference is almost more stressful and more difficult than the actual conference itself. But do you have a presentation tip that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only tip that I give out is you have to do it a lot. Like, you do it until a point that you don't even have to, it's in your muscle. Yeah, and I do it. I was doing it a lot. I was doing like 4 to 5 mock presentation a day. And it wasn't like a long presentation. It was just short. You don't have to like do all of them at once. You can just break it down into smaller sections, like part A for a day, part B for the next day. So you don't have to do all of them at once. So you don't have to be stressed out about it. So break them down into smaller sections and do them over time. I was doing mock presentation for like 2 months before going to the conference, and it really helped me. So when I step on that podium and I talk, I don't think about anything else. It's just in my muscle. I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't even have to think about it anymore. So I think the best option is just train, train, train. You do it. The more you do it, the better you do it.
What was it like when you stepped on that stage initially versus when you were done?
Yeah, I think when I first stepped up to that podium and I looked down all of them, I just think to myself, you know what? It's been quite a bit of a journey, a couple of months of working, and this is the moment. So don't mess this one up. And I was just looking at them and I think, it's all gonna be all right. Just give myself a little pat on the back like that. But I think a big thing is that people there, they were very friendly. I talked to all the panelists beforehand, and they were not as intimidating as they might look at first. They were all very friendly. And, looking down, I just think that, oh, these people are my friends. And it's going to be all right. And yeah, it's just happened like that. I didn't think much about it at all. Now looking back, I realized that, I should have thought more about it. But then at that moment, I just started doing it. I didn't think much. I left all the thinking out of my head. Once I finished it, I got off that podium and everybody was clapping and all of that. It was just such a huge amount of relief that it's finally over. But yeah, definitely the stressing part came much earlier, like in the last couple of, I would say, 6 to 7 weeks when I'm working on the presentation, and I also telling myself, oh, there's something wrong with this. The evidence is not enough. The data, the graphs are not enough. I need to provide it more literature review and that sort of things. And we just keep overthinking about it. But, at the end, the more you think about it, the more you realize, okay, everything's going to be all right. Just don't stress out about it. And I think that's why you should always give some time in whatever you're doing, whether it's like a presentation in a class or like a project or anything. You should start it early and have more time to work on it, so that once the D-Day happen, you don't have to stress much about it anymore.
You mentioned the relief that you felt after presenting. How, as a researcher, will you continue to, study the topic that you covered? Because even though you presented, it's not like you're really closing this chapter, right? How do you continue to learn from that?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. So I would say in terms of academia, I feel like I need to strengthen my knowledge in different kind of fields. So one of the angle that I analyzed the problem was political economy. So the political impacts of economic policies. And in my article, I talk about how the foreign policy is a result of Vietnam's current economic system as well. And I think that's why I think I'm lucky, because I double major in econ and political science, but I definitely have to expand a lot into this field of econ in order to understand political science, which is funny. But yeah, that is definitely something I'm striving for in the future. And of course, continue to joining conferences and applying for internship and fellowships as well. And hopefully that, going to lead me to more exciting opportunities and experience.
Obviously, you had a great time at this conference, but kind of start to finish, how long did from the writing the paper to applying to then eventually presenting, and obviously it's not over for you yet, you're still kind of refining your research. How long has that process taken you?
So I submitted my abstract and application around March, and the conference is in September. So it's a 6 months long. But, before that, I have applied to conferences before and fell. And so I got quite a bit of experience in terms of how to do abstracts and all of that. And the writing the paper as well, it was definitely quite difficult for your first couple of 2 papers. But for this one, I think I got a bit more experience and I break it down into smaller categories. So for like an example, for a paper that is, let's say, 200,000 words long, I'm not going to write 200,000 words in like a week. That's impossible to do. Instead, over the course of 6 months, I broke it down into smaller sections. So every day I'm going to write like 1,000 words. And 1,000 words a day, I don't think that's too bad. But once you do it over a long period, you get there and it's all right. And I think, just break it down into smaller parts. Like the first thing I wake up during the day, I came straight into my table, I do my work, And, when you fresh out in the morning, me personally, it's better for me because my brain's there and it's not tired at all. It's full of energy, and I just go on my work and I just write. And at the end, I just try to incorporate all of them together, and it makes life a lot easier, I guess. So that I will say it's around 6 months, and the most stressful is definitely August. It's definitely the hardest time. As closer it is to the conference, um, I always worry that I'm not gonna get it done, so I try to get it done beforehand. And by the early of September, I already got everything done. So it was just getting feedback from all the professor and everybody as well.
When you have a project like this that you said 6 months, so a little bit more of a long-term project, what's your advice to kind of breaking it down into more negotiable chunks?
That's actually a great question. I think for, let's say, like a graduate thesis, when you go into master or PhD, or even an honors thesis as well. The honor thesis here at USF require you to do it over 2 semesters, right? And there's going to be an advisor for you to help you to how to manage that. And me personally, I didn't have that back when I was doing this, and I was just going online and looking for tips on how do you break it down into smaller sections. So the way I do is I break it down into the bigger research question. I break them up into 4 to 5 different research questions, smaller ones, and I tackle them individually. So I never thought of that as like a big project. I break it down into four to 4 or 5 smaller projects, and I think it's in itself, when you have these smaller projects, it's already a lot easier for you mentally when you deal with them. And yeah, and I break it down even smaller. So for example, the big question was, can Vietnam bamboo diplomacy withstand future regional conflict? First, you have to talk, what is bamboo diplomacy? What are the possible future conflicts? And you break it down again. What is bamboo? The bamboo is the image, it's actually originated from Thailand, the Vietnamese copy from the Thai. So, and all of that. And what is their current policy in terms of economic, cultural, and political, and all of that. And, over time, when you do it bit by bit by bit, it's a lot easier. I would say that.
So you said a little bit that you prefer to write in the morning, but what does your writing process kind of look like day to day, and how do you work on refining your paper?
Oh, that's wonderful. That is a great question, actually. This is sort of like a system that I've been developed back when I was in freshman year. So I always do my writing in the morning, and I do my reading in the afternoon. I feel like that works best for me. For everybody else, it can be a little bit different. So in the afternoon, I'm going to read, and I'm going to pick out all the key topics and the key points from that reading. I'm going to put them on a separate sheets of paper. And then up in the morning, I'm going to look back at this sheet of paper, and, all these talking points and everything it's there. And the writing is easy because all you have to do now is you just take whatever you've read and you incorporated them into your writing. And I think for a lot of people, they don't have a clear plan from the beginning, and it makes writing can be a little bit daunting and scary for them. You should always have a clear plan of what you're doing in terms of timeline, but in terms of the steps. And you should read first, you pick out the talking points, then you go on the writing. Instead, you should not just turn on the Google Docs or Word and you just start typing and then you erase and type. It's not efficient. So you should have a plan. You read all these materials, you pick out talking points, the writing should be the last. And the writing shouldn't be that hard. It is the finding informations and forming, or your thesis and argument should be the ones that you pay attention to the most. And I always have a pen and paper with me so I can do that.
I'm excited to see what you will continue to do in your research and perhaps attend other conferences in the rest of your time here at USF and beyond. What's next for you? What do you hope to gain from these experiences, and do you have any future plans?
Thank you. So for future plans, I would say, this experience taught me a lot about how to conduct your own individual research. That I'll, definitely take this into account as I do future paper presentation or even my thesis here at the Honors College as well. And also, I think a big part of it was asking for funding. I think, asking for funding is one of the most difficult tasks in academia. And and it's very difficult to do that. I had the firsthand experience of that, and now it definitely taught me a lot about how do you write a proposal for funding, and how you should make it convincing for people to invest in your research. I think that's a very important skills as well for not just aspiring academician, but for pretty much everybody as well. You need to make a good pitch, whether you're applying for jobs or whether you are starting your own business. I'll say that. So that's important. And in terms of future projects, I would definitely say applying to more internships and fellowships and scholarships and future conferences. I already applied to a couple of them, and we'll see what the future holds.
Mysterious, and I'm excited to see what's next. What advice would you have to give to other students who are interested in sharing their research at conferences or at exploring opportunities beyond the classroom?
In terms of advice, just go ahead and apply. Don't think too much about it. Don't think, oh, if I'm going to fail this, or oh, I'm not qualified enough. You are qualified. Trust me, everybody is qualified to do all of this. It's just you have to just submit. And first couple of times going to be failure. That's all right. You don't have to stress out about it. You're going to get it in the end. The point is you just keep going no matter what, And I've definitely failed quite a bit before in the past, but never stopped me. And I think if you want it, then just go for it. Don't ever think much about it. You'll find a way. And, think back about my process of getting funding. That was probably one of the most difficult part about the research and the presentation, which is finding funding. And, I never stop, even when all of these different people told me that, they don't have funding. I still keep on looking for it, knocking on doors and see if there's any sources for it. And I think at the end, if you really want it and you just keep going for it, you'll get it.
I'm glad you found it here at the Honors College. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Absolutely, guys. I'm really thankful for you guys and really enjoy to be here.
We are back in the studio, and we just finished talking to honor student Alex Vu, and that was such a fun conversation.
I know.
His research was incredible, and I loved hearing how the Honors College helped him get there, especially through funding and scholarships, and I'm so excited to see what he has next for him.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I was super impressed that he was surrounded by a bunch of graduate students and that he was the only undergraduate student there at the University of Notre Dame. I'm also super excited to see what his future research and time at conferences look like.
He did mention that he has a summer internship lined up, so maybe we'll hear from him again.
And if you'd like to get involved in more opportunities similar to the one that Alex did, do not forget to check out the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for all upcoming events, updates, and news. That'll do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by honors students Sandra Napolitano and Nguyen. Thank you all so much for listening, and please do not forget to rate and review our podcast as we appreciate your feedback. Tune in next week where we hear more honor stories and talk to more members of the Judy Genshaft Honors College. Until next time,
Go Bulls!